I've been driving for the rideshare service for nearly 3 years, a habit born out of a need for solitude and the lure of late-night quiet. I always preferred the eerie hours, when the roads were empty, the neon lights flickered in silence, and every so often fate would toss a story into my path. That night the air was unusually cold, and the city's heartbeat seemed to slow to a ghostly pace. I received a ride request from a location on the edge of town, a closed convenience store with dark, unlit windows and an abandoned lot. As I pulled up, my instinct screamed that something was off. There, on the cracked pavement, stood a lone figure, a man in a threadbare jacket with eyes that darted like frightened prey. His movements were jittery, almost as if he were expecting to be chased by invisible phantoms. Against every fiber of my caution, I unlocked the doors and let him in. From the start, he exuded a silence that was heavy with unspoken tales. He didn't fidget or check his phone. Instead, he fixed his gaze on the rearview mirror as though daring me to look away. After a few long minutes of oppressive silence, he broke it with a low, gravelly whisper. "Ever wonder if every ride has a reason?" His voice carried the weight of regrets and secrets. As we merged onto a long, deserted highway, he began recounting a tale of his own, a story of betrayal, lost dreams, and a life once spent behind the wheel, now forever marred by the shadows of his past. His words, laced with bitterness and sorrow, painted a picture of a man who had once been a driver like me, but had been swallowed whole by the darkness of a city that never cared to remember its own. Do you ever feel like the night hides more than just empty roads? His eyes, now glittering with a strange mix of defiance and despair, never left my face. I couldn't decide whether to be drawn into his narrative or to slam on the brakes and flee into the inky night. Moments later, he abruptly muttered, "Stop here," and pointed to a narrow, gravelly side road that wasn't on my GPS. My heart pounded as I pulled over beside an old, rusted gas station that looked long forgotten. I glanced in the rearview mirror, only to find the back seat empty. His jacket lay draped over the seat, and a small worn notebook rested on the floor where his hands had been minutes ago. Before I could process the shock, flashing red and blue lights appeared in the distance. I sat frozen, my mind racing through a dozen impossible scenarios. The police arrived swiftly, questioning me about a string of unsolved disappearances and reports of a mysterious figure seen near the closed store. I handed over my dashcam footage, a precaution I had taken after a previous unsettling encounter, to the officers. In the grainy video, I watched myself pick up the stranger. Then, something inexplicable happened. At the moment of his disappearance, the camera caught a fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure hovering at the back of the seat, a pale silhouette that seemed to smile before fading into the darkness. I couldn't decide whether I was witnessing a hallucination, a ghost, or something far more sinister. The police shrugged off my account as stress-induced imagination, yet that night changed me forever. I no longer trusted the silence of the late hours. Every deserted road became a reminder that sometimes the night carries passengers who aren't meant to ride, and while I still drive, I now stick to well-lit routes, forever haunted by the memory of the midnight passenger, a man who may have been nothing more than a spectre from a forgotten past or a warning from the shadows.